Good afternoon. My name is Dwight Drummond, and I am your host for this fireside chat featuring Dr. Wesley J. Hall and his book, No Bootstraps When You're Barefoot. Welcome, everyone. It's great to be here to celebrate Wes's book along with this afternoon's interviewer, Donette Chin-Loy Chang. We are all from Jamaica, first-generation Canadians, and we all care deeply about building a better Canada. And with Wes receiving his honorary doctorate a couple of years ago, we're also now all TMU alumni, so welcome to the club. Before we begin our event, I'd like to start with a land acknowledgement. Toronto is in the Dish with One Spoon territory. The Dish with One Spoon is a treaty between the Anishinaabe, Mississaugas, and the Haudenosaunee that bound them to share the territory and protect the land. Subsequent indigenous nations and peoples, Europeans, and all newcomers have been invited into this treaty in the spirit of peace, friendship, and respect. Wes Hall's conversation with Donette Chin-Loy Chang will begin momentarily, but first, I am delighted to introduce our president and vice chancellor, Dr. Mohammed Leshmi, is here to welcome you here today. President Leshmi.
Good afternoon. It's my pleasure to be with you and join the celebration of Wes Hall's autobiography. There is a saying about finding success by pulling yourself up by your bootstraps. For Wes Hall, that journey from Tyne Shack to the boardrooms of Bay Street started in Barefoot, literally. His story is about succeeding in the face of poverty, racism, and hardship. It's also about making the most of opportunity, finding faith in yourself, asking for help when you need it, and in turn, helping others. And Wes has helped others in numerous ways. We know that education can help build bridges to a better life. Wes and others in this room have made that possible through student awards and bursaries. And educational opportunities not easily available to many young people. At TMU, we are committed to creating opportunities and making education accessible for all. Why? Because education opens doors. I was talking to Wes in the past, and I said, I have a similar story. I have a picture similar to yours with your grandmother. I was also raised by my grandmother in a small, tiny village in North Africa. Our university has spearheaded and partnered on several initiatives aiming at doing just that, spanning the gaps, Black innovation programs at the DMZ, and our renowned tri-mentoring program, and of course the Viola this month award program, to name just few. Wes has also provided Black entrepreneurs with the chance to thrive. As founder of the Black North Initiative, he's working to get more Black leaders on corporate boards, and we know that we have just few. These are important steps to building an equitable and prosperous Canada. I'm pleased that Wes is now part of the TMU family, as you mentioned. It was a great pleasure for us to bestow him an honorary doctorate last year. And Wes, we have many students in the room that also are celebrating your success. Can I have, by show of hand, the number of students among those who received awards and bursaries? I believe also we have some entrepreneurs from Wes Hall Social Entrepreneurship Award. Do we have some here? Wonderful. I'm so glad that you are joining us today. I was interviewed at the beginning, the importance of having Wes on our campus. And what I said is we need role models for our students to believe in themselves and to believe in a better future. And I asked those questions. As I look around the room today, I see people flourishing, but I see also promise. And I see individuals who made this promise possible. We are delighted to have TMU leaders here in attendance today, and we have 3 deans at the table here, and several of our honorary doctorates, including Dr. Donette Chin-Loy, our biggest champion. And of course, Dr. Wes Hall. Many others have joined us today as well. TMU students, alumni, family, and countless friends of the university. It's so wonderful to have everyone join in the celebration today. Before I conclude, I want to add that it's an additional pleasure to share this podium with Dwight Drummond. You know Dwight as the anchor of the CBC Toronto 6 o'clock news, and most recently as the new host of CBC News Network Canada Tonight. So you have to change your time a little bit and go to bed later. Not only he's a grad of our radio and television arts program, class of 91, and Dwight asked me the question, can I get my degree with the new name? I said, absolutely. Once we get the approval from the legislature at Queen's Park, which is taking place these days, we will be able to switch the official name to TMU. And Dwight also is a generous supporter of students and a past recipient of the TMU Alumni Achievement Award. Dwight, you are a tremendous ambassador for our university. Your success as a broadcaster and community leader is an inspiration for all of us, to our students. When I was appointed by the university as the 9th president of the university, the first non-white man, I asked the board chair and chancellor for Dwight to be the MC of the event because of what he has done for our university. So thank you very much for taking time to be here, and please enjoy the afternoon. Over to you.
You guys are gonna make me blush. I am so happy to be here as part of this because these 2 people are very special to me. They're very special people, but they are very special people, so I'm so happy to be part of this, and thank you, Dr. Leshemi. I was in a room like this back in 1990, and I actually got an award at an event like this from, it was called the Lorne Green Award for the Recognition of Canadian Talent, and I got it from a Jewish community group, and they gave me $500. You know what's funny? I was trying to figure out how I was gonna come up with the $500 to pay for my books that year, and that little RTA event, they gave me the $500. That's why I said, okay, somebody's looking out for me. Somebody was really looking out for me, so thank you for that. I think it's important that this fireside chat not just be about a dragon on Dragon's Den or a Bay Street power broker. This is what we call in the community, and I think, is he here? Or is Mr. T. Or he's here. What we call real talk, right, Carly? Real talk. We're here for some real talk today about belonging, finding your space, and being fearless. It's especially fantastic that Wes's Fireside Chat is with Donette Chin-Loy Chang, a highly respected communications leader, philanthropist, volunteer, and mentor. It was her and her husband who actually brought me back to Ryerson University when they learned that I was an alum to come back and start doing things with the school. So she's a member of the Black North Initiative Board and also the National Coalition of Canadians Against Asian Racism. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Donette Chin-Loy Chang and Dr. Wesley J. Hall to the stage.
Well, you got the pillow right there.
Yeah,
so
I know.
Do
you want
I don't want you to put me to sleep, so you can take the pillow. Oh, by the way, I got to say that the jerk chicken and rice and peas, that's a great touch, you all.
I know.
That's
How come
like...
we didn't get that upstairs.
No, I didn't get that upstairs. They gave me
But you wanted vegan.
salmon.
Yeah.
That's it. That's all I got. So that's good. You guys enjoy the jerk chicken. Don't.
Yeah. What's
Don't
keto?
choke on the bone.
You got keto too.
Yeah. And so I've been at this thing since October, early October.
All right.
I've been speaking on the book tour. I spoke in Vancouver and Halifax and Montreal and Ottawa.
Yeah.
And I spoke in front of the biggest group was 2,000 people. And this is the friendliest crowd that I've.
Of course.
Yeah, friendliest crowd. And the most intimate, the friendliest.
Yeah.
And I see a lot of friendly faces that if I go around the room, I can tell stories with each of those people, in my career and all the things that they helped me, and we did some crazy things together.
Yeah.
So, but you mentioned that this conversation, by the way, you should be interviewing me, by the way.
Yeah,
right?
I know.
I just want you to remember why you're
Okay,
here.
I'm done. Yeah.
And and again, you said that you're gonna ask me some questions that
Yeah.
nobody else has asked me
Nobody else has
before.
asked you.
And there's some reporters in the audience should be offended by that, because Donette is essentially telling you guys that you're not doing your job if you didn't ask me.
Well, you know me, I'm old school. And I know you have some friends here. I saw Cardinal Official. I saw the Honorable Jean Augustine, Kamala Jean Gopi, and a number of others. There's a friend table here. Christine Hall is here.
Yeah,
too.
my wife is here, so I better be careful.
First, I want to thank TMU, President Lashimi, and the fabulous team led by Alumni Engagement for staging this event. Big shout out to Florence James. And today's her birthday. And it's also Kamala Jean Gopi's birthday.
Wow.
And thanks also to my friend Dwight Drummond, and who's Jamaican born, Montego Bay, of course. And of course, warmest thanks to my friend Wes Hall, another son of the Jamaican soil.
Yeah,
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, so I met Wes and Christine several years ago when the University of the West Indies honored him at the UWI Benefit Awards, and then gave him an honorary doctorate, the first.
The first.
The
You never
first.
forget your first.
You never forget your first.
Mm-hmm.
I might, Wes and I, together with Bridget and Andrew Chang, are now patrons of that event, the UWI Toronto Benefit Awards. And I sit, yes, on the Black North board, thanks to you, Wes. Did I have a choice? Wes,
Yeah,
I
you
read the
did.
book twice.
Twice.
I read it twice. It was actually hard to put down. As Dwight Drummond said, he put it down after you got on the plane to Canada. Several themes resonated.
Yeah.
The pursuit of belonging, through hardships, challenges, packages of joy and hope, also surviving love, loss, adversity, strength, forgiveness, grit, and gratitude. To summarize, it's about the adversity of everything. And pretty improbable. What made you decide to tell your story now?
I think Samuel Leonard's in the audience. He actually came to me. Samuel, stand up. He's a student, actually was a student here at the university. And next to Sam is his father, Ken. Ken, you stand up. And and the reason why I'm saying that is because it's a full circle there. So Samuel, Ken and I have known each other for a very long time. And Ken was at Scotiabank for many, many years. And I dealt with Ken when I was at Canvas Global. That was my first big break at Canvas Global. That was like almost 30 years ago, Ken, just aging you a little bit. So, but the hair you have no hair, so you used to have hair when I met you back then. And Samuel said, I would like to meet, to his father, I would like to meet this guy, Wes Hall. And because I would like to do a documentary on him. And I'm like, okay. So Ken called me up and said, Wes, my son would like to meet you as a student at TMU, and could you meet him? So he came over, and he came very prepared because I didn't really think I had a story that anybody cared about, but he thought so, and he came prepared, and I said, okay, fine. If you can pitch my family and get him to say yes, then I'll do the documentary. So he did the same thing, came to my house, and he pitched my entire family. The kids were sitting there, my wife was sitting there, and he standing in front of us, and he pitched us as to why my story should be a film. And we all looked around at when he's done and said, what do you guys think? We said yes, and Samuel became, that's how the documentary Wes came about. And fast forward to November 2nd, Ken, 2022. Ken is now a member of my team at Kingsdale and at Wes Hall. So it's a small circle, but a lot of people over the years have been saying you should write your book, but when you're living your life, you don't think it's remarkable. Like, you really don't. Like, you're living it because it's your life. It's not like I'm sitting there going every day, I'm like, man, this is remarkable. I can't believe I'm so good.
The book is as painful as it is joyous. From the day your siblings, Joan and Ian, and you were abandoned in a shack with a bowl of porridge.
Yeah.
And then saved by Julia Vassell, Mrs. Julia Vassell, your grandmother. Mm-hmm. The horrendous mental, physical damage that this did to you, the abuse from your mother and stepfather, who were actually also abusing each other. Mm-hmm. And then your journey to Canada at age 16 and living with your dad and your stepmother and siblings, and the jobs you took to survive. Your own marriage to Christine and your 5 children, and your break on Bay Street. A meteoric rise, I may add. How did you find the strength to dig deep and come this far seemingly unscathed? And I know you have a lot of the wounds still.
Yeah, again, you kind of live your life and you don't really think about it. Like, I really don't. I never once, it's only when I was writing the book, actually, that, and after multiple edits and back and forth, and I sat there and I go, okay, I'm going to read it from cover to cover, that I go, man, this is crazy. I can't believe I did that. But never once was and by the way, each of those chapters could be a whole book. There's so much stuff missing from that book. I didn't talk really about my business, and I didn't talk really about some of the real deep challenges that I've experienced on Bay Street or in business and even now, like people would say, Wes, you've climbed to the top of Everest and you're looking down. Everybody must go, you're the champion. But even to this day, I still hear people telling me what I can't do.
Do you pinch yourself sometimes?
No, because I got so much more to do. Like, if you pinch yourself, it's almost like, mission accomplished. That's what you do when you pinch yourself. It's like, okay, I've done it, mission accomplished. But, I'm still, I think, at my age, I think I still have a lot of runway left. I think I still have a lot to do. And the reason why I keep on doing it is because I kept that picture with my grandmother. I think it's probably going to show up at some point on my desk. Not this one, the one with the tin shack. But I kept it on my desk at the office deliberately, because it's the first thing I look at when I get to the office, because it tells me that journey is impossible from there to here, so what else is impossible, right? So my job is to find that next impossible thing, whatever that is, and accomplish it.
And you just keep doing the impossible.
And just keep doing the impossible, because that word shouldn't be in our vocabulary. It doesn't exist. It shouldn't exist. So when people say, Wes, what you've done is impossible, well, I just did it, so it's not impossible. So what else is there that I can do that you deem to be impossible? I think people allow other people to put limits on them. And the impossibility language comes from somebody else telling you what your capabilities are. But if you take that limit away, then that's, that your accomplishment is limitless. So I think what I can do is limitless, based on my own ability or inability. And I don't really think I have any inabilities. I know it's bizarre saying that, and it sounds a little arrogant. By the way, to digress a little bit.
There's an arrogant word.
Yeah, man. So my wife can tell you. She can tell you. I asked her out 3 times before she said yes, because she didn't understand the difference between confidence and arrogance. And I was trying to tell her that. She kept on saying I was arrogant. I was like, no, I'm just very, very confident. You just need to know the definition of the word. And she didn't understand the definition until now.
I see.
Right?
Okay.
Yeah. It took
Well,
a while.
it
It took a while.
But
Yeah.
where did you get that confidence? I mean, you were beaten and battered for 2 years by the people who are supposed to love you the most.
Yeah, so I spent 11 years essentially with my grandmother. And she was just, the epitome of industriousness, of love and joy and confidence. When you think about, she was raising 11 grandkids on a plantation worker's salary. And and you mentioned about her coming to get us. So when my mother left, literally a boil of a pot of porridge, and she put it on the stove, she boiled it, and she put it on the table or wherever she put it. And she had a 4-year-old there with her. She had me at 18 months old, and she had my brother at 6 months old. And she just decided that this is the last thing I'm going to do for these kids. And she left. And she never came back. She didn't wonder what's going to happen after, who's going to get them. She didn't give my grandmother a heads up to say, these kids are in this shack by themselves. She just left. Now, one could say it's postpartum depression. One could, all kinds of reasons behind it. But that's what she did. And when the neighbor went to the plantation, I think she was working on a banana plantation at that time, and the neighbor went to get her. He came on a bicycle, he heard us crying, asked my sister what happened. My sister said, they're hungry, the porridge is done, let me go get your grandmother. Went to the plantation, got her, and she came, she was 60. And she never said, God, why me? Why me? And keep in mind, she had all those other kids that she was looking after. And so there was never a sense of resentment that I saw in her. In all those 11 years of her struggling and working hard in that tin shack, no electricity, no running water. You have to, go get wood and build a fire to cook for these kids. Got to go to the river to wash their clothes because you didn't have running water. And then she had to go to work on the plantation, and she never complained.
Yeah.
Like a day in her life. So for me, when somebody tells me, that, Wes, you can't do this or you can't do that, or I just channeled her.
Yeah.
Nobody stopped her.
In fact, you dedicated the book to her. And this is the cover of the book. I don't know if everybody has seen it already.
Well, there's going to be a picture coming up. There's a picture for everything, by the way. Look how fly that kid is, okay?
Hey,
seriously.
Wes, really? You were a hot stepper back then.
Yeah, man.
You remember this day?
I remember, so that's 1976. So the only time that we dress like that is when we're going to church or a funeral, but nobody gets married around there. So it's always church, right? And there's, so my grandmother would dress us up to go to church like that. Yeah. And so my dad, occasionally would send clothes for us.
In the barrel.
And to put it in a barrel. People who have closets these days, including me, I think I have a closet now. But we had barrels.
Yeah.
And the barrel was like these round barrels to ship things in. And then we put the clothes in there. So on Sundays, you'd dig that out. And so we didn't wear shoes normally. So she would, but my dad would send the shoes. So what happened is you would put a cardboard down and trace your feet.
Yeah.
And then send it back to Canada.
Yeah.
And that's what, and then my dad would go to wherever he goes, put the shoe on that foot, and send it back home.
And send your size bigger so
Bigger.
you can grow in it.
Yeah, it would be a size bigger,
Yeah.
right? And then what you do when you get the size bigger, you put newspaper in it, right? And as your feet grow, you take the newspaper out.
Yeah.
That's what we used to do. But sometimes we'd go, man, and because we had to work on the plantation and help her and stuff like that, we kind of didn't go to church for a few weeks. And then you would go put the shoes on. Yeah. You can't fit that shoes. Their shoes too big, it's too small now, right?
You know the song Boasty, Idris Elba, right?
Yeah.
This is you, not you.
That's it, man.
Right?
But here's what it showed, though, is that if you're, because we're so poor, right? The confidence, look at the confidence in that person, that kid. That confidence didn't just get up one day and got there, right? Somebody had to instill that confidence in me. And that's my grandmother. So when my mother abandoned me and so on, my grandmother was the one who go, I'm going to make you look good. I'm going to dress you up, and you have to carry yourself like you own this outfit, right? So, I'm wearing the same kind of outfit today.
Yeah, true.
Right? You got to own it, man.
And the shoes. Just to give our guests a sense of where you were born in the parish of St. Thomas, it's often called the forgotten parish. It's still really pretty poor and really bad. In many cases, people own, corrugated zinc homes, no running water, outhouses, toilet facilities. Really, the plantation. Many still work on those plantations, but whereas you were not decades from the plantation, you were of the plantation. You were tying banana together for export and so forth and so on. How did you transition that kind of thinking into now being on Bay Street?
So I work so hostile takeovers and shareholder activism is kind of what I started doing. So if somebody come into this country, for example, and say, I don't like the board of CP Rail. CP Rail is one we're known for in 2012, where they go, I want to replace the management team and I'll put my own team in place to run this company. People hire me to do that. Right, and we have the #1 brand in the country. There's a number of my team members here from Kingsdale that are here today, and so when you think about it, I go up against people who are highly educated, who are from Harvard, went to Harvard, who live in the fanciest neighborhoods in the city of Toronto, and they're the opposite side of me, and here I am, this guy from the tin shack. But if you have a bet the farm mandate that you're working on, a bet the farm mandate where the winning means everything to you. Yeah. Who are you gonna go to? If you have a choice of working with the guy who has a silver spoon, grew up in Rosedale, went to Upper Canada College, went to Harvard, find his way in Bay Street versus a guy who came from a tin shack and are opposite that same person. The choice is obvious. You're gonna go with the person who fought their way all the way up to the top, not the person who privilege got them to the top. So to me, I think that the hard work that I've done so much, it kind of helped me to be the scrapper that I am today, that never kind of underestimate what my abilities are. And there's so many young people that are in that situation today.
You once told me that you have an empty chair. You save an empty chair in the office because?
I don't save the empty chair. I don't have a chair in the office. I don't have a chair in the office because that corner office belonged to somebody else.
And
the guy who went to Rosedale, I live in Rosedale, and went to Upper Canada College and went to Princeton and Harvard, that's his chair. That's his office. I'm occupying. So one day he's going to show up, and I'm going to be like, hey, I'm fixing your computer, man. I'm sorry. What? If I'm sitting down there, it's going to look uncomfortable. It's mine. And I think, when you come from where I came from, you can't just go through life being privileged or thinking you're privileged, because you're not.
But the Maroons came from there, so it's no wonder that, the self-assurance and the kind of tenacity that you have. But I want to talk about shoes.
Yeah.
The title of this book is No Bootstraps When You're Barefoot. Shoes are really a metaphor for you, filling your grandmother's big shoes, always kicking it up a notch with some fancy shoes, leaving big shoes to fill. Tell me about shoes as a metaphor for you.
Well, even the language on the book about no bootstrap because usually what people tell you when you're down in the dumps, pull your stuff up by the bootstraps. What if you have no boots? How do you do that? How do you pull yourself out of the dumps? When you're starting a business, somebody say, I bootstrap my company. that meant I found the money somehow, whether it be inherited it or got it from others to start my business. What happens when you have no boots? How do you bootstrap your business? So it's a metaphor for all the things that we go through in life, that people tell us to do it by using your bootstrap. But if you have no boots, it's essentially they're asking you to do something very impossible. You can't help yourself. You can't pull yourself up. You can't get yourself out of a depressing circumstances. You can't start your business. But that's what Black entrepreneurs go through, is that people tell you, in spite of the obstacles that you see around you, just do it. Make it happen. But it's one thing to say that you don't have the tools to make it happen. But what about it when somebody deliberate to take those tools away from you? It's like, it's one thing, you don't have it. I don't have this, but if the tool is there and they just take it away and now tell you to go ahead and be successful, how do you do that? And so that's what my story is. My story is about people actually continually take my tools away and then tell me to be successful. And then when I actually achieve success, they go, okay, fine, let me find some other ways to prevent that success from happening. So from my mother abandoning me to, living with her and then she threw me out, to coming to Canada and live with my dad for only 2 years and then having to do all those menial tasks. It's people continually taking your tools away and expect that you should just pull yourself up at bootstrap and make things happen.
But you always find another tool, no?
You always do, because at the end of the day, I didn't do it on my own, right? We talk about getting married, for example. Having somebody, you always need to have someone in your corner rooting for you. If I didn't have those people along the way, I wouldn't have been here today. So I can't sit here and say I did it on my own. I didn't. I had an army of people that I really appreciated the sacrifices that they made to say, hey, I believe in that kid. I posted something on LinkedIn very recently about Ian Telfer. Ian Telfer was the CEO of Goldcorp and gave him my first big break on Bay Street. And I'm telling you, it was, he shouldn't have done it. It came at a great professional cost to him had it not worked out. And all the people that helped me along the way to get to where I'm at today, it would have come at a great personal cost to them had I not been successful, had the chance that they took didn't work. But they didn't let it stop them from doing it because it was the right thing for them to do at the time. So for me, that's how I operate today. I like to give underdogs an opportunity to fail. A lot of people, because at the end of the day, those people, they didn't know it was going to succeed or fail. But I would like to give them an opportunity to fail because you learn from failure. And I'm glad that I didn't fail in the traditional sense of the word, but I disappointed, I'm sure, some people along the way because they may have expected a certain thing that didn't really happen because they didn't take certain things into account. And another example, being on Dragon's Den. People think it's a very easy thing to do. I've never been on television before, never been. But yet when I go on television, they're comparing me to Arlene or Michelle or those folks who've been on television for 15 years. And my first season should be exactly the same performance as them. But let's say CBC, the ratings dropped that year, my first year.
Yeah.
What's likely going to do? Well, it's Wes's fault. Let's get rid of him.
So you're held to a different standard.
It's always going to be a different standard. And you have to go into those environments prepared that you're going to be held to a different standard. And you can't sit there and stump your fingers and put your thumb in your mouth saying, no, it's not fair, life is not fair. Just, that's life.
So gratitude, by saying all that, you're manifesting gratitude. What about forgiveness? Have you forgiven your mom?
Well, my mom is in Canada today as a result of that. One of the objectives that I had when I was younger was to bring my entire family from the plantation from Jamaica to Canada, my entire family. But the only way to do that, to bring my mom first, or to put her first on the application. That's just how the immigration law worked at the time. When I started the process, I was about 18 years old. And so my mother was on, my sister Barbara was on, and all the older kids were there. And my mom had 2 younger kids that could have come at any time. But she switched it around and she put the younger kids on. And my older brothers, brother and sister Joan and Leslie, got stuck in Jamaica because they changed the law in between that time frame. And but it didn't really work out that way. So when I got married, and that's why I said each of the parts could be a different chapter. So I called my mom and said, listen, just wait. I just got married. I found this great woman. I just got married. And don't come until next year, until we got settled. And I got a call from the airport, from Pearson Airport, that they're there. My mom with my 5 siblings.
Wow.
And we're married for a month, Christine and I. Okay.
You're still married,
She
right?
was,
Happy.
and she was 19. She was 19. I was 21 years old. And we had my mom with my 5 siblings and her, and I had to go to the airport to pick them up to live with us. And we had 2 bedrooms, and that was a book.
I think that was a test of your marriage.
That is a book. So. So I cannot leave Christine because she's like, okay, you want to leave? I'm going to write a book myself. So what happened there?
Well, in the book you describe at age 13, the last time your mother beat you and you did not cry. Mm-hmm. Why didn't you cry?
So there was a build up to that point. So, my mom was just incredibly abusive, and I understand that Jamaican parents are tough, right? My grandmother was tough, but she wasn't. She was tough in a loving way. She was administering discipline to correct you. She wasn't administering discipline to break you. My mom was administering discipline to break me, to break my spirit, to break my will, to break everything about me. And so I would cry all along until. And then just before we moved to this new housing complex, she kept on threatening me that she's going to throw me out and I'm not going to come live with her. And so I just spent all my emotional energy dealing with that situation. And we finally moved and she took me. And then she was in the backyard and she was beating me in the backyard. And then I just spent all that emotional energy before, and I just stopped. I just wasn't doing anything. And she was in midair. She stopped, and she's like, "Okay, you're a man now. Go." And she threw me out. And I just remember how liberating that was for me because I picked up that straw bag with my clothes in it, and I was walking down this gravel road, this white gravel road, and I was just planning my future with a smile on my face, because nothing was going to be as bad as I just experienced, I just left behind. And so to me, all those things that I go through in life was always like, I look for an upside when there's a down. When there's when my family came and I had to look after them, I got to figure out the upside. I got to figure out how to, we had a 16, my sister was 15, my brother was 16. I had to get him into high school. I got to get him winter clothes. I got to get my mom winter clothes, my sister Barbara winter clothes. I have to get them a social insurance number. I got to do all those things while I was working in the mailroom, doing those things, right? So for me, I couldn't sit there and go, oh God, what's going to happen to all these kids? I have a mailroom salary. I just got married for a month. How am I going to deal with this stuff? You just got to figure it out. And so that's kind of what happens in life. Things happen. You can't just sit there and dwell on it. You got to figure it out, and that's what I've been doing ever since.
But you have forgiven her.
Oh, absolutely. You don't forget, but you certainly have forgiven, her in the sense that, God knows what she was going through in her life.
Well, the chapter in the book, there is a couple of sentences before the actual chapter begins of a warning, and I found that pretty horrendous. And so, people are, several friends asked me the question, do you think he has forgiven her? So the answer is yes, you have forgiven her. I'm going to ask you I want your quick reaction to these. Julia Vassell. Mm-hmm. I would like your quick reaction to each of these.
Well, just industrious, loving, and gentle and kind.
If Mrs. Vassell were here, your mama, your grandmother, what would you say to her?
I would say, I would just thank you. She saved my life. And how do you really thank somebody who would save your life?
What do you think she would say to you?
I remember when I was actually sending a couple of dollars to her and I would apologize in the letters.
that I don't have enough. I'm sorry I couldn't send you more. And she would always write back to say, don't focus on me, focus on you. And, you're there to look after yourself and to get an education. Don't worry about sending money back. She was always selfless, to me. And I never forget that because she was so opposite of my mother, And, there's something called nature and nurture, where you have the same person raising the same two people, and one is a prisoner and one is a business leader. Why is that? Because there's something that both of those persons got from that instruction that my grandmother was given or my mother was given. And so to me, what I was looking at in her was something very different than my brothers were looking at in her. I was just looking at how hard she was working. I was looking at her selflessness. I was looking at how industrious she was. I was looking at all the qualities that I wanted to emulate. And that's what I focused on, whereas they may have been focusing on something very, very different. So I would say, but till the day she died, every single one of her grandkids adored her to this day. Even her great-grandkids adored her because she died raising great-grandkids. Wow. She died in poverty at 97 years old. Can you imagine that? You worked for your entire life, and you died. And then, she didn't even see the fruits of some of her labor like mine. She couldn't have imagined what I've achieved. She couldn't have imagined it. And I just wish that she could have a glimpse of what my future would look like, because even though she wasn't going to participate in it, she would be proud of it, right?
Nice. Christine Zootman.
Yeah.
Hall.
Yeah. She still hated taking my last name, by the way. Because she's like, I look in the phone book, and there's like 1,000 Halls in there. And there's only one Zoutman in the entire, her family is the only one in the city of Toronto.
It has a nice ring to it. Mm-hmm. Leonard Hall, your dad.
Yeah. Well, he was a young man that, sowed his wild oats all over Jamaica because he was a cricketer and he was the man at the time, but he didn't forget that he had an obligation, and he didn't forget me. Yeah. And so I am eternally grateful for him. Mm-hmm. And unlike my grandmother, though, he's able to see, what I've become, and he's able to benefit, from what I've done, what I've become.
Bernice Hall, your stepmom.
Same with her. She's treated me like her own kid until this day. And she was an advocate for me because, again, not a part of the book that's not there, but my father had 2 kids in Jamaica when he was living in Jamaica. My dad came here when he was 25 years old, and he had I have an older sibling down there. And she came to Canada when she was, I think when she was 12 years old. And her mom really fought my dad to send her back to Jamaica because she missed her, and got a lawyer and fought all this thing. And my dad said, I'm never going to bring any of the other kids back to Canada again, including me, that was stuck there. And my stepmother advocated for him to give me a shot because I didn't get my shot.
Wow. And
she fought hard to get me here.
Fabulous.
Yeah.
Darian.
My eldest, the first, I feel sorry for the poor kid because he had to go through. I think his brother is here. Brenton is here. You're lucky, Darian. But it was a great kid. Like, he was very smart, hardworking, still is today. But we. Christine and I were young parents, and the poor kid we were strict. We're like my dad kind of
like
strict.
Your dad, yeah.
But we're strict. We're strict parents. So but we grew. I raised them the same way that my grandmother raised me, just to be respectful. I hope that they look at the way that I work hard and kind of go, I'm going to emulate him in the way that I kind of raise my family, look after my kids. The spouse that I choose and all that. Yeah.
Brenton is here, your second son.
I'm not going to say anything about him because he's here, and his head doesn't need to get any bigger than it is today. But no, Brenton works directly with me in my investment company, We Shall, and glad to have him as part of the team. And chip off the old block.
Kiana?
Kiana is very, very hardworking. You know, she works for this company called Aritzia, and she's working remotely. And if anybody knows anything about me, I'm into this thing about people should work in the office and stuff like that. My daughter, if I tell her to have some water, could you go get me some water, Kiana? I'm thirsty. I'm going to die right now. She's like, I'm working. And she will not get me the water. She will not leave.
The chip off the old block.
Well, yeah, I'm not that strict about work, okay? But she's been working virtually, and she loves it, and she doesn't cheat a second from her employer.
her.
So again, you're right. It's like it's just how they've been raised.
Skylar?
Yeah, she's gonna take over the world one day. Yeah, I think she thinks she is. Yeah.
And Brogan?
Yeah, so Brogan is the last one, and we call him the grandkid because we treat him like our grandkid. Like he's 12, you know, our eldest is 27. That was Brent Darian, 28, 27. Our eldest is 27, all right? And you know,
You're old.
parents don't keep track of these things. Like at least dads don't, anyways. It's like, you know, but and he's 12, and you know, the kid like was born into this. You know, Darian saw the struggles. Like, you know, I can't afford to pay, you know, to make diapers for your kids, so you're gonna have to run around naked with no diaper for a little while. He saw a little bit of that. Brenton saw a little bit of that. Kiana saw a little bit of that. Skylar saw, Brogan saw none of it.
No.
You know, none of it.
And
so
he got the dog.
and he's got everything. You know, like he fought. All the other kids fought for years to get a dog. The guy got a dog. And they want treehouse. He got a treehouse. You know, I remember we're flying in a plane, and he's like, you sit there, and he's like, this is the way to travel, man. You know, it's like, you know, like the kids don't even travel in business class. They travel to the back of the plane. And this kid was on a private jet, and he's like, yeah, this is the way to go. Like he doesn't
A chip off the old block.
doesn't know.
Wes, what about your brother Ian?
So, you know, that's the, you know, to me, to this day, that's the biggest regret that I have. It was, for those who haven't read the book, and he was the one who got murdered. Because Ian came here, because, again, the whole plan of me bringing my siblings here was so that they all got the same shot that I did. So Ian was the one that was in the house with me when my mother abandoned me. He was a 6-month-old. And so him and I had this kinship. And it's ironic too, Joan was also the one in the house with me. And she died of cancer. But we have this bond, Ian and myself and Joan. And so Ian I had to bury when he got murdered. Joan I had to bury when she died of cancer. And it's like I'm the only one of that, the three of us that are left, you know. And you know, but his death to me kind of really hurt, because I felt that if I'd left him down there, he would have been okay. He would have been alive still, you know. But again, I can't really be too upset about it, because you know, if I didn't give him that opportunity, I would regret not giving it to him, you know. And what he made of it, it's really up to him. And I try to encourage him, but at the end of the day, that was his call to make, and he unfortunately, you know, gave his life away.
Joan, I met Joan in Jamaica when we had your film at the theater. She was really cool. I mean, she got really dressed up that evening.
Yeah, man, she was like in her Sunday best. You know, Joan was like, you know, she would give her life for me. You know, she was, and she never got the chance to see Canada, but it didn't matter to her. Like she, you know, it was like she was living my life for me. Like my wife, you know, she treated her like, you know, like I remember when I would go to Jamaica and to see her, and some of these ladies would say, "Hey, let me meet your brother," you know, and she's like, "You look at him one time." She would be like, "There's not a chance that you don't even look at him," right? So she was very, very protective in every way possible. And she's like, all the other ones you can go after, but not that one.
Lancelot Day.
Lance is here. Lance, stand up, man. I got to give Lance some props. Where is Lance?
Lance.
So Lance is my boy at CIBC. So when I wanted to start Kingsdale, I had a house. The first thing Christine and I did when we got married and we could afford to put all our money together to buy a house. So I had a house, they had equity in it and stuff. And when I decided to start Kingsdale, I went to all the banks to get money, and I got turned down by every single one of them, even though I had equity in my home. And theoretically, the law and the rules of the banks and the institution says that if you have equity and you want to borrow against the equity, you should be able to do that, right? And so I was turned down, and all the investors also turned me down as well, because I guess they saw the risk in the business that I had. And then I remember going to CIBC, and it was a time when the tellers were all and the desks were all on Concourse in Commerce Court West, and I walked in, and among the sea of people, I saw one single black man behind the desk, and it was Lance. And I went to him with my business plan, and I said, listen, brother, because that's what you call black people when you're looking for a favor. You call them.
Our sister.
Heads up to all you guys. If you're in a very responsible position, you're black, and another black man call you brother.
Our sister.
Our sister, I asked them or they speaking Jamaican to you. It's like they want something, okay? So I said, brother, listen, man. And I showed him my business plan. He looked at it, and he's like, wow, this is pretty cool. This is a good business idea. Leave it with me. And he left and came back, said, come back in a week, and came back, and he's like, okay, I'm going to loan you the $100,000 to start your Kingsdale, right? But if he wasn't there that day, right? Remember we talk about representation matters. If he wasn't there that day, Kingsdale wouldn't have started. And Lance, what did you do last week? You sent me something last week. Tell people what you sent me last week. I like putting that for you sent me the actual outstanding, the loan. Yeah.
You still owe your money.
The account is still open. The account is still open. He never did, just for nostalgia purposes. That line of credit from over 20 years ago is still there and available to me to draw upon, right? And again, it's like it's
everybody
typical.
in the room, you're taking to dinner.
No. Did I say they were a line of credit? It's the bank's money, ain't mine. I'm just saying.
Here's another word.
Oh, by the way, and that's the other thing, like credit, okay? To all the bankers in the room, black people hate credit. We're debt averse. And it's ironic because people are afraid to loan us money. But once we come to you for money, that's a last resort to us. Yeah. And we would go hungry rather than not paying your money back. So my grandmother, when I was being raised and she would owe people money, we would go without food so she can pay that money back. Yeah. Because she said, I don't want to die and somebody say, your grandmother owed me money.
Your reputation,
right? So that's why it's so ironic that black entrepreneurs, they find it difficult to give us capital when we're debt averse. And the first thing we do, we pay the money back. We don't like owing people money, right? So if they understand that, this economy could be so much better than this today.
I know you're going to change that one day. Jehovah.
Yeah. Well, I I got exposed to the Jehovah's Witness faith when I was 16, when I came to live with my dad. And in Jamaica, we call Jehovah's Witness Jehovah's wickedness. I don't know why they call it.
You were gonna. It's in the book.
Terrible expression.
But it was bad.
But when I went and I started to learn about that faith, quite frankly, I felt it was so different than anything else I was learning. Because my grandmother. There's a picture of I don't know if you have that picture, Annie, with my grandmother in a wrap, her church outfit, because she was raised us as religious people. Yeah. That would go to church, every Sunday unless there's something unusual. That's her when I was a little bit younger, and that's our church outfit, right? And you see, she had the wrap on her head, and you could see like there was like an angel. She's like white, everything white, and she would go to church. But think of the contrast of her day. Working in a sugarcane plant, on a sugarcane plantation. They burn the sugarcane so you can actually harvest it better. Mm-hmm. And when she's done at the end of the day, she'll be covered with soot, black, covered with black. And Sundays is actually, look, she's just radiant on Sundays. And that's a contrast, right? So I've always remembered church as being something important, something that was a refreshment from the struggles of working on a plantation and being on a plantation. Sundays was just like my day to look smart and great and have some higher being to look up to and to do, because that's what my grandmother taught me. So when I came here and I got exposed to that, I felt I still have that religious streak in me that she put in me, and I wanted to fill that. And when I went to the Kingdom Hall for the first time, that's when I kind of got that, and I've been a Jehovah's Witness ever since.
George Floyd.
So that obviously affected a lot of black folks, but it shouldn't really be just black folks. It should have affected all decent people. Everyone who's decent who saw something like that happen, there should be something within them that changed if they felt that a behavior like that was ignored or was acceptable historically. Nobody really thought it was acceptable, but if you saw something like that and you just kept on walking away, that meant that you were tacitly approving what was going on. You didn't really do something about it. Until George Floyd was when people's decency started to come out and go, no, we can't tolerate this. To me, it kind of took it to a next level for me because I saw myself in him.
Yes.
And then I started to relive all those experiences in my life that could have made me George Floyd, or at least what happened to him could have happened to me in those instances. And so I looked at it to say our society could be better, and if people work collectively, they could change society for the better. And so to me, it was just something that I felt that if I could do this much to make some change, that I got to at least try. And we tried. I started in Black North, and now will forever be remembered as that organization got started because of what happened to George Floyd.
Yes, the trauma. And Dahabo is here. She's the executive director of the BNI.
She's here. Yeah.
So I don't have much time left. I keep getting these signals. Your philanthropy, we must touch on that. Wes, you're a patron of education in Canada and the Caribbean. I will never forget the day we went to the Children's Hospital in Kingston, Jamaica, and a little boy, a baby, was born. He had to have these tubes to live, to exist. You and I and a group of us walked in, and you said to his dad, Peter.
Yeah, Kendrick was the young boy's name. So he was in the ICU in Bustamante Hospital. He was 4 years old. He was born in the ICU. There are 4 units in the hospital. He was occupying one for the last 4 years, and he had a crushed trachea. He couldn't speak. They had to feed him intravenously, and he couldn't stand up. He couldn't talk, and that was his life. And they did multiple surgeries on him, and they just couldn't do anything about it. And so he was going to spend the rest of his life in the ICU as a child, and then they would take him into a public ICU. And the Minister of Health at the time was telling us what was going on, and they said, listen, we could do something about it. There's only 2 hospitals that could, try to help him. It was a hospital in the States and Sick Kids Hospital. And I was on the board at Sick Kids at the time. And I left the room, and I went and I called the CEO of the hospital, and I said, we need to do something about this kid and to get him looked after. And the obstacle was a $500,000 U.S. medical bill. And that obstacle was a death sentence for him and a trauma for his family, because he obviously couldn't pay it. The Jamaican government couldn't pay it, but ultimately we decided to get him to the hospital. There's a lot of things that happened in between that had to be done. There's a lot of red tape involved. But anyways, he came to Sick Kids, got treated, and now he's a normal child in Jamaica. Yeah.
But you said to his dad that day, I'm going to get your boy.
Yeah.
You're out of here.
Yeah, I just told him that we're going to do whatever we can to get him looked after. And I remember, Donette, it's interesting about human nature. I remember somebody came up to me at an event when they heard what was going on. And the person said to me, you know, Wes, you're spending, you know, all this money in just one child when, you know, he's probably going to die anyways because I know his condition. But you could help so many other kids by diverting that money to those kids. When you think about that, the audacity of someone telling you how to spend your money.
I know,
Right? But just forget about this human being because they're too far gone. Just focus on others. It's a human being. And this thought pattern couldn't match what you even tried to help that person. And so I just thought, just back to my grandmother, what would she have done? Like when she knew that I might be working on the plantation for the rest of my life. Let's say, for example, she went to that plantation shack when Joe and myself and Ian was there, and she's like, okay, I can only take one of you guys. I got to figure out which one of you guys are going to probably be the smartest one that's going to get out of the shack and make something of yourself. And then she's going to have to roll the dice on and then leave two of us behind. Could you imagine that if people have to make that choice? If it's just about money and about what you're going to do in life as opposed to just being just a decent person? So my grandmother made all those sacrifices, not even caring what we're going to do with her life and what we're going to become. She just did it because she was just a decent person.
And TMU is one of your, you know, we have some of your students here. What message do you want to leave for the young?
That they have to pay it forward. To me, one of my good friends, Justice McLeod, put it this way. It's like when we come from poverty, we become first responders. Our job is to go back into poverty and pull as many people out as we possibly can.
It's our duty.
And that's our duty to do that. So when somebody do something kind to you, your job is to do that kindness to somebody else.
Absolutely.
And so if you benefit from anything that we do here at TMU, that when you have the ability to pay it forward, to do that.
So we have to wrap now, Wes, and we could have gone on for another, couple of hours, but finally, as we wrap, I know that rapping was your thing. Back at Lester B. Pearson, Scarborough. Hey, I grew up in Scarborough as well, right? Okay, I know Cardinal is here. Don't be shy.
Cardinal, I can't do that. Cardinal. Yeah,
I want you to give us a tune because you gave that tune. Yeah.
Oh man, can you believe that?
Yeah.
You didn't put me on the spot like this, man. Okay, so we were at. I'm clearly game for anything.
Well, remember I told you they're a little different?
Yeah.
Come on, give us a... and we can raise $50,000 in here right now for your student.
Okay, so who's gonna donate the 50 grand? Tell me who's gonna donate the 50 grand.
And I'm gonna
be Drake tonight, man. So I remember we were in high school in Pearson, Lester B. Pearson, and we live in Malvern. Just came from Jamaica not too long. And then we had this International Day event, and they wanted Jamaicans, every single culture should be represented. So we decided we're going to rap. My friend Gary and I are going to rap, and the rap it was just spur of the moment, and so we went. So Pearson had a lot of buses around that takes you all over the place, and Malvern Town Center, which everybody knows about, and stuff like that. So I decided I'm going to rap about the buses around the bus, around and where they go. So I said, all right, here's Jamaican, come out. Around Pearson, there's a lot of bus stop. One Nielsen, one Topscott. One Nugget and one Milner, and all of them end up at the town center. Right, that's it. And it took the house down.
Well, thank you so much. And thanks to Christine and your family, and thanks to everybody here for spending the
Nobody had me do that, okay? So that's, nobody had me do that.
Ladies and gentlemen, a round of applause for Dr. Donette Chin-Loy Chang and our friend Wes Hall.
Thanks.
Thank you so much. That was wonderful. And as inspiring as that talk was, if you haven't read the book yet, read it. It is an inspiring read. One night, I read before I go to bed, and there was a point where this young man was living through this harrowing experience in Jamaica, and I could not put that book down and go to bed till I got through that chapter, and he was safely on the plane to Canada. As soon as I said, oh goodness, thank God. And I closed the book and kept reading the next day. Shout outs for today, Chief Chef Tommy and the students from the Ted Rogers School of Management and Hospitality program. Thank you. I'm going to say that the jerk chicken passed the test and the rice and peas passed the test. I'm impressed. Thank you very much. Also, shout out to my alma mater, the RTA, Radio and Television Arts Film Crews here. That's my program from back in the day. TMU Alumni Relations Team and Assistant Vice President Kirshan Mehta for organizing this event. Where's Kirshan? The man who's always behind me. If you see me on the podium, that's the guy behind me. And thank you all for coming, courtesy of TMU. We have complimentary, and I already bought this book on Apple Books, really? Oh, boy. We have complimentary signed copies of Wes's book for all of you. You can find them at the reception desk by the entrance. I hope. Yes, ma'am.
Oprah, you feel like Oprah right now?
One book for you, one book for you, one book for you. Book for everybody. I hope you enjoyed this talk. I hope it inspires you and you find strength from it and affirmation and purpose like I did from reading this book. Thank you all for being here. Have a wonderful rest of your day.